what are some areas that you feel like students will struggle with this, and what are some of the adjustments or shifts that you made to this portion of the script? And some scaffolding questions that you created.
Okay, for question 4, I did, what does square meters mean? So when the problem is just as square meters, like what does it lend to? Is it focusing on area perimeter?
Excellent.
And then I also found the area and perimeter of both for that figure, even though, yep, the area was provided, I found a perimeter for that diagram as well, I mean the rectangle as well. But when it goes to the next person, Nancy's garden, so Cherie's saying now that her friend's garden is twice the width, right? So then I have to make sure I make that change. But the thing that's a little confusing is that when it goes to the next person, it's 3 times both. So it's really making sure that she was zoning on the verbiage. It says
3 times for both dimensions.
for length and width.
Yeah.
Yes. So where it says for Sherry, she says, but help me draw my friend Nancy's garden. She's twice as long as the 4 meters. So you know you gotta do 4 times 2, right? Then that give you 8. So now it says draw Nancy's garden. So now you draw Nancy's garden. So once you find that area in the perimeter, but you're only changing 1, right? The length is still the same, but the width is what's changing. But then with the neighbor, it's saying, no, it's 3 times as long and 3 times as wide. So it's changing both.
How would you support students, and like what are some of the questions that you might ask them to support them through that, understanding the difference between what they need to do?
I think the power of making sure labeling each part of the figure. Because if you just have a letter there, it's fine, but if you have the L equals this or the W equals this, then kids know that's the only number that's being changed, because that's what they're asking about for Nancy. And then when as far as neighbor, then it's like, oh, no, I have to do 3 times those numbers from the initial model of Cherie's garden. So to me, I would think in my mind, if I'm like planning it out, I would have like 3 separate posters, and build model Cherie's first, do the area and the perimeter. And then for Nancy, focusing on those key words twice as long. And what have you noticed to the figures changing? So what do you notice from Cherie compared to Nancy?
Okay, but what questions would you ask the students? Because you're talking about how you would present it, which is good. But when kids are struggling through this themselves, like if they're like, I'm not following or not understanding, like the questions that you're asking. For example, they ask them, if you're asking them, okay, let's find the perimeter, let's say of Nancy's, they're supposed to find the perimeter of both, and you see students are struggling with making that shift. So what questions could you jump in to help support them through that shift? Or you said that the students will struggle, or you notice that may be a shift for them to understand that when they get to the neighbors, that they have to do both dimensions. So what questions could you help ask them to support them through that process?
I guess basic questions like, what's the length of Cherie's garden? What's the width of Cherie's garden? Okay, let me make sure I write that down. What's the area formula? What's the perimeter formula? Okay, let's make sure we have this down and know what we're looking for.
So this is what I want you to script into these are the questions that I want you guys to have readily available in your script. Because one thing we notice when we get into our lesson and delivering our lessons, sometimes we forget what we want to ask. Some things we feel like are innate, but we want to really be intentional about what we're asking our students to support them through this process. Because sometimes we can get stuck, sometimes we can miss, so we want to have these questions explicitly scripted out. Like right here at this point, this is where I want to ask this question, because I know this is going to be a struggle point. Yes.
For the teacher, it says, help me draw Nancy's garden twice as long as 4 meters. I think I would ask, of course, what did we start out with? What would be twice as long as the 4 meters? Show me what that looks like. How would you get that answer?
So
how do you know?
Yes, some of those questions, digging deep and having that conversation, having kids lift up their thinking, because
even how can you prove that that's the correct answer? Is it 4 times as long?
Right.
So they have to show it.
Exactly. And so those are questions, because they're not scripted here, but those are questions we want to ask students to lift up that thinking.
Yeah,
and
these
make
are
sure
students that know everything right here.
exactly, exactly. They say S, and the student gives the
Yeah,
perfect
right.
answer, but we know 80% of
like
our kids are not gonna be able to give that answer off the bat. So what are some kids' questions, supporting questions that we can add in there to build them up to the answer, the responses that we're looking for? So that's what we wanna script in. Like, for example, some of the shifts, I like what you were saying about how you would have them build this out first and do, because, you know, you're thinking how they have it scripted out. I may wanna shift it around, like the question that they asked about the relationships.
Mhm.
They want them to create this, one of the
Chart.
shifts I made, they want them to create the
Okay.
chart.
Mhm.
I would probably go through solving,
Absolutely.
finding the perimeter area of all of it, create this chart, and
And
then
then
we
ask.
Go
start
back and
talking
ask
Right.
about,
Because they need to see it.
See it.
yes,
For
yes.
sure.
And
I
so,
put that too.
and this is an example of kind of an anchor chart that you can make for this particular portion, where they have the first step, that you're working it out here, the second step, and of course, I would
Good
probably
idea.
have it on my clipboard too,
Mhm.
of what I wanna put here, what I wanna put here. And then when they have this chart filled out, then we can start talking about some of the questions about the relationship, so they can actually see, so what's the relationship between the perimeter between Sherry and Nancy's
Nancy.
perimeter? What's the relationship between the area of Sherry? So these are some of the things that you wanna incorporate and notate on the script to make it more, you know what I'm saying? Make
These are
it,
the concept developments that take the whole time.
yes.
And then the next day you do the you know, it's like in
Yes.
their minds like, this is not, for me to go through 40 problems, this one, even question 3 kind of takes a while, right?
Mhm.
It's like, it's unrealistic, right?
This
So,
is not a needs-based small group day.
but a part of it too is like, this is the higher level thinking, right? Analysis, because you have to really decide what's needed and what's not.
Yes.
And I feel like problem 1 is like, you know, something they did in 3rd grade,
Exactly.
here it is, right?
Exactly.
But then when, as you go older, so in my mind, am I gonna be able to get through all 4, or should I focus on?
What do you think the answer to that is?
I think number 1 is something that I probably would just provide and see if they can do it on their own and then decide.
Okay.
That but making sure that I get to at least, it's like I wanna get to 4, but I think 3 is powerful too, you know?
Mhm.
So,
It is.
cause it's multi-step, and that's one of those questions that are like the comparison piece.
And what I would suggest is for problem number 1 or 2, you can pick either one, you would model for them.
Okay.
Model it for them, so they're watching you, watch me, and model it for them real quick, cause this is their first, at bat at this. So I would model that for them real quick, and then now we're going to work through together based on what you saw, just based on the think aloud that you just saw me do, and then let's get into this. I wanted to lean into these because, like you said, the first problem is pretty straightforward,
Mhm.
but these are the areas
Meats.
where students are really going to struggle. So I wanted us to kind of talk through the supports. I wanted us to have time to practice, but we started a little late, so we didn't get to the practice piece of really practicing how would we deliver this, because I think that's powerful as well. But I really feel like we did have some good conversations. So the big thing, any questions before I move?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So as far as problem 1, this is your concept development. So this is whole group.
Mhm.
You definitely need to do problem 1 because those are those kids, that 3rd group that may not get it at all. They need to actually do it and see it to understand it.
Okay.
So even though it may seem, you know,
Pretty
3rd gradish,
basic.
they need it. They need that reinforcement. They need to see it to understand what the area is, what the perimeter, how did I do it, how did I get it, so that I can actually see it. It's not just a number, you know.
So should it be like a I do, we do, you do?
I would say, not even for you to just do it, but for them to do it along with you.
So build it out for that first one because they're using those manipulatives
Right.
and stuff. But we want to move them through that because you want to give it, you know,
But for
enough time.
for the concept,
Mhm.
would you do all the way up to the 3rd problem with the whole group? Because
All of, yes,
okay,
yes. I would do probably problem number 1. I would pick 1 or 2 because they kind of are getting at the same thing. Then building out. If I just did 2, if I started with 2, we would use the square tiles. I wouldn't
Right.
even have them, I would just draw it
Mhm.
up. We would be using the square tiles, or you can start with one, but I probably wouldn't do both. So I would figure out which one I feel like is more powerful,
And
then
do
move
3 and
into
4.
3 and 4.
But with those lows, they need 1 and 2. I
They
mean,
do.
they need to see the build from the first one to the second one because the language is different. It's 3 times as long.
Mhm.
They need to do that. So that's why I'm saying it's kind of difficult to do all of that as whole group because some of them need more time with those foundational skills, whereas others, we got this, we can move on.
So
That was my dilemma.
I understand you. So what I would suggest then is to revisit it in a small group.
Mhm.
So move
Okay.
so hit it, move through
Mhm.
the whole group lesson, and then tomorrow when I pull them for small group, we're gonna revisit and give them a problem similar to it, because we know that those students that you're
Mhm.
referring
Talking,
to,
I was thinking that. I was
live
like, I
here.
just do number 4 in small group. That would be the
Yes.
question
Right.
of the day.
yes,
We work
oh,
through.
for number 4?
Yeah,
That's
because I feel
an
like some
option as
kids
well.
would really, it's
They need that challenge.
yeah, it's also like
Mhm.
multi-step. It's almost like I kind of want to see, especially the higher kids, I kind of want to see your thinking on how would you attack this problem.
Right.
If we went through it in concept development and did some problem set, and the next day I could see, well, man, let's see if you,
So you would do
Check
1,
understanding.
2, 3, and then do 4
yeah, in small
in
group.
small group.
Yeah.
Okay. But we wanna make sure everybody's getting exposure to these more difficult problems too. But in small group is where you would address the fact that we know that some of our students still need to continue to do more problems, like
Number 1 and 2.
problem number 1 and 2, but we still wanna make sure they're all exposed to these type of problems and to the conversation that goes along with it, the discussion that goes along with it. All right, so just a stamp. What's happening, or what the teacher action steps will be. Thank you. So the first step, when we're coming in, is to utilize that lesson script. So we definitely wanna see that you have the script there. One thing that our admin is gonna be looking for when they come in, and me as well when I come in, is to see that you actually have the script on you. So I suggest always having a clipboard. That's gonna be a key point this year, having that as a reference. And of course, you're not gonna necessarily read word for word from the script, but also referencing it. I know when I'm doing lessons, I always have this, my notes and everything there, your questions there. I know I wanna hit this, because we wanna lean into the script for our planning. So having those scaffolding questions there and actually asking those and using those to support your lesson. The concrete manipulatives out and ready for everyone, and that you're creating the anchor charts for students to be able to follow and be able to reference as you move forward with these concepts. So those are your 3 action steps.
Having
Yes.
those questions pre-scripted out will kind of make you think about or know which students are going to need it the most, right?
Mhm.
So when you're scripting them out, think about, I know Mitchell's not going to get this. So
Yes.
this is where I'm going to script this out. I'm going to hone in and be prepared to ask this question at the right time.
Absolutely, and that's why we really think, identify some of these gaps, because these gaps will kind of guide the questionings or the questions that we want. What are gaps that I know so-and-so is not gonna know what I'm talking about? When I ask this, so what questions can I ask to build to be able to answer or understand the concept and answer those questions that I'm asking? All right?
Okay.
So, do you know, you have a date of when you feel like you're going to be delivering this lesson, when we can come in and
Let's
see?
set a date because I want to come see it.
You can come.
And to add to that, right, one of the things that we're gonna start doing is recording, right? So like the date that you provide us, we're gonna come in and record it, stays in-house, Ms. Davila, I saw that look, it stays in-house. And the reason for that, like, it creates, one, it's powerful,
Okay.
2, it creates like the win-win for all of us, right? And I think it's really good for you to see yourself in practice, because oftentimes when we're delivering something, we know that we're hitting everything on the mark. And I think it'll be good in terms of like practice and growth for you to be able to see, like, did I really just say that? You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. So yeah, it's no judgment, it's just strictly for growth, right? My personal growth as the instructional leader, like I'm gonna share my areas of vulnerability here, so I can look at it and say, well, hey, okay, yeah, and then we can share it, it's just gonna build us up, alright?
So,
I'm thinking like, right after A-net, so like Halloween, probably either that Thursday or that Friday.
alright, so what is that,
The
10?
31st, Thursday the 31st, or this would be that one, Thursday 31st or Friday the
The
1st.
first, okay,
Cause we have 2 days for A-net, right?
yes, that, Tuesday and Wednesday.
29th.
You know what? Fridays are your short periods.
Yes, they are, but I'm trying to get into it because I'll be out the week before for homecoming, and that week I'm spending, so it's either more than likely gonna be that week or next week, but I'm gonna aim for that week. But if I have to change, I'll let you know.
But you're just saying the Thursday probably would be
Yeah, she's saying,
better.
yeah,
Yeah, cause
yeah.
time wise.
Right.
But my things, I need to look at that module again, because I feel like lesson 2, I forgot which one is bolded, like which one
This
is the,
is-
the
lesson
bold-
2 is bolded.
But lesson 1 is bolded too, right?
No.
No, so then I'll
But-
do it Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, but I think lesson 1 is important.
That's
still
what I
to-
think too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it should.
So if it's not Thursday or Friday, then it'll be Monday the next week, so
Okay,
you know.
so just we'll
31st
we'll
or
put-
the 1st,
Let's do 1st and 4th.
the first or the
or
fourth.
1st and 4th.
Why don't we do the fourth?
4th? We're not
Yeah.
even here on the 4th. See?
That Monday?
No.
We're not gonna
Election
Sunday
day.
or Tuesday.
So
Tuesday's
Yeah,
the
that's why
same.
you wanna push
That's
for
why I was
that
kinda
week.
pushing, yeah. At least to get started with the module before we come back.
Okay,
Um,
so the 31st is,
the 31st, just say the 31st.
okay. That's where we'll get there.
We only have like 13 days in November. 13 instructional days.
Yeah. And you should only use one day for A-net.
Yes,
One of
yes.
those
I'm
days.
shooting for to do it on Tuesday and be done.
Okay.
Cause I'll get started right through.
What time, what times?